Hello and welcome to a standard deck profile. This time I want to talk about the new and improved Nirvana Jheva with the benefit it got from set 13. Jheva has always been a deck that hits pretty hard and has some really cool high power effects, but is held back by consistency and self-minusing. However, with the new Blaze Maiden we got in set 13, the deck is now more consistent than it has ever been. Uh, Let me see if I can adjust the... There we go. The deck has now essentially 14 hard search effects in the deck, and that each of those hard search effects is going to solve one major issue we have, and some of them overlap, and that means that we can get essentially anything out of the deck we want as long as we see one or two hard search effects in our opening hand. We should be basically good to go. This deck can now get every Virina out of the deck by turn 3 sometimes, and that means that we're also compressing way harder than we used to, meaning we hit triggers more, so we sack more, we stay alive longer because of hit more defensives, we pressure the opponent harder. Everything about this deck is stronger because of the new consistency tools. So even though the new Blazeman just seems like one new card, it actually greatly impacts how strong this deck is over the course of many turns. So without any further ado, let's get into the list. Starting with the ride line, of course, you have to play the Nirvana ride line, but you can play either of the egg starters. I'm playing Sunrise Egg, and please play one of the egg starters. It just doesn't make sense for your Phoenix to hatch without having it started as an egg. Then I'm playing Heart Pounding Blaze Maiden Reno. When this unit is rode upon by the grade 2, you search your deck for a Trickstar and call it R, and we need a Trickstar every game, so we use that. So we need to play this grade 1, and that means we need to play that grade 2. And then the other effect doesn't matter because we will literally never call this to rear. Then we have Snuggling Blaze Maiden Rayu, which when it's rode upon by Jheva, you check the top 7 for a Prayer Dragon, add it to hand, and shuffle. The new Trickstars are Prayer Dragons, so this effect is now a lot more consistent at getting you a card. And again, the rear guard effect doesn't matter. And then we have Nirvana Jheva, our grade 3, which has the effect that you can discard a card from hand once per turn to call up to 1 Trickstar and up to 1 Prayer Dragon from your drop to R. Important to note that Trickstar is also a Prayer Dragon now, so you can call 2 Trickstars if you need to, designating 1 for each of the halves of the effect. And that can help you build a board really fast because we have lots of ways to get Prayer Dragons and such. And then we have, as an auto skill, when this unit attacks, you can counterblast 1 and choose one of your rear guards in the crossover to a state and stand it. With the effect of Strava Arena, this is going to give us 5 attacks. Overall, this is I've said this before, this Vanguard itself is somewhat underpowered, but the massive amount of synergy in the deck makes it really good. So that's our ride line. You have to play this ride line. You can play technically any starter, I guess, but you have to play this ride line. But play the egg, please. And then we play our maximum number of copies Persona Ride. We are a beatdown deck. We want to hit those big power thresholds. Getting Persona Ride and not getting Persona Ride is night and day for your numbers. It's the difference between 2-card guard with two, or there's the difference between 3-card guard and 2-card guard on your Strava Arena attacks. And then we have our new Blaze Maiden at 4 copies. This card is that good. This is Blaze Maiden Blessia. Has the effect that when it's discarded from hand during your turn, you choose a grade 3 Nirvana from your ride deck, or if you have a grade 3 Nirvana Vanguard, you Energy Blast 3 and search your deck for up to 1 card with the Overdress or Cross Overdress ability, reveal it and put it in your hand and shuffle the deck. So this can be played if you want to go back and play old school Nirvana with original Overdress. This card will support that too. But in Cross Overdress, this card's really broken because being able to hard search all of our stuff means that we can kind of just find whatever we need. It's energy, so you can't play any other energy blasting cards except for our Prayer Dragon that blasts energy, just because you don't want the skills to clash that much. And this makes the deck able to play a pretty good going second game. You obviously still want to go first when possible, but if you have to go second, you can generate a lot of value. And then the other effect is that if you have a grade 3 Nirvana Vanguard or greater, you can Soul Blast 2 and retire this unit and choose a Prayer Dragon from your drop and call it to R. Now remember, Prayer Dragon, or new Trickstar is also a Prayer Dragon. So if you do play this in old Nirvana, this can just be a way to superior call a Trickstar from drop, which is pretty good. Other than that, it's an 8k booster, which is nothing to scoff at. But this card is just overall really solid for consistency. It means that we have so many cards we can open with our hand, in our hand to search for Virinas with, that we're basically guaranteed to get the ones we want. Hence, we can play now a one-of package instead of playing like multiples of all the good ones and then like one of the bad ones. So this card's really, really good. It's good at all stages of the game. It's good when you don't need to search because you can just use it to boost, and then it's good when you need to rebuild a board from nothing after your opponent killed all your units. Very, very solid card. Single-handedly keeps this deck relevant. Then we have our Operagia at 4 copies. This is our Prayer Dragon that searches for other Prayer Dragons. When it's placed on R, other than from deck, Soul Blast 1 and discard a card from hand, and you search your deck for a Prayer Dragon called R. We have so much good discard fodder. We can discard Blessia to get a search effect. We can discard a Trick Star that we can call from drop later, or another Prayer Dragon we want to call from drop later. We have Virina. We have Ars Virina, which will go to Soul and search out a Virina or a Prayer Dragon when it's discarded, and that means we can get even more value. We have Cindy's that call from drop, so we can get value that way. It's basically, the discard is an upside, not a downside in this deck. And then when this card becomes original dress, you draw a card and you choose the outer dress, and it becomes it can't be targeted until the end of your opponent's next turn. So just getting resist for a turn is really good, especially because now we have so much extra shield value in our crossover dress cards from the Trickstar and from other things, because we're now playing Vils again, that getting the untargetable crossover dress card can really help preserve your defense on your opponent's turn. And also it can just help you with value by keeping you from having to rebuild your board every single time. Because realistically, in the mid to late game, your opponent is not going to be sending all their attacks at your rears. They do have to try to win the game at some point. And then for the rest of our Prayer Dragons, we have 2 copies of Piercing Equipped Dragon Argnius. This is our other energy spender. When you discard it or when you play it, you energy blast 3 and you pick a card with the crossover dress ability from drop and put it in hand. And then when it becomes original dress, you can soul blast 1 and countercharge. Great card overall. Kind of does everything we need it to. It serves a very strong role, and the fact that it's on place as well means that we can search it out with Operagia and get the reclamation effect. So we can always turn an Operagia and do a crossover dress unit as well, which is really nice. And if you sequence with discarding Ars Virina, you can Ars Virina to bin the crossover dress card you actually want, and then you can pick it up with Argnius. And then we have 1 copy of Spin Equipped Dragon Buzzsaw. This is just here so that we can get enough Prayer Dragons into play in the late game when we're out of resources. But also, it just happens to be like a good generic card to search out in the mid game or early game when you like don't have anything you need, but you just want power on play. So this has the effect that if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Nirvana, it gets all the following effects. It has an axe skill and drop. If you have a rear guard with Trickstar in its card name, and you do not have a rear guard with the same card name as this card, you can Soul Blast 1 and call it to R. And at the end of the turn, it retires itself. And then when this card becomes original dress, you choose one of this unit's outer dress, and it gets 5k. So this 5k is actually pretty good. Strav Irina being a 13k base means that you can make it up to an 18k, which with its own effect will make it 28. So now suddenly it's a magic number, and it's 38 if you have Persona. And then that means that like very quickly we're getting to numbers that are very hard to deal with. Also, because it calls from drop, you can like safely use it as fodder for your crossover dress and then kill off those units or let them be killed off or intercept with them, and then you call this back again from drop the next turn. Because we can call 2 Trick Stars, oftentimes, or not often, but occasionally, in certain edge cases, you'll call 2 Trick Stars and then Soul Blast to call this as your Prayer Dragon for a Strav Arena, and then the Trick Star for anything else. So it's a good card to have access to. I would recommend playing this over trying to play another tech slot. Then we have our 4 Trickstar and Swendys. These are both Trickstars and Prayer Dragons now. They're considered the same name as Trickstar. And then it has, when you would choose the original dress for your crossover dress, you can use this card as a Trickstar and a Prayer Dragon, counting as 2 cards. And then when your unit is attacked, you can call this from original dress to give 10k to the attacked unit. And then when your outer dress would be put in the deck or bind, you put all of the original dress into drop. So you can't get completely screwed by your opponent binding your Strav Arena and hitting all your pieces or whatever. Then we have our crossover dress package. I'm going to start with 3 Ars Virina. This is the only one we play multiples of because it's a search effect. When this card is discarded, it goes to the soul, and you search for a talisman card, which is all of your Virenas and all of your Trick Stars, and you put it in the drop zone. Uh, and then it crossover dresses for one Trick Star and one or more Prayer Dragons with different names. So you can put as many under as you want, basically. And then you put your entire drop zone into the original dress and turn off all the auto abilities from cards on the drop. Uh, and or cards that go into your original dress, and so then it gets 1k power for every card in the original dress. So this thing gets really big in the late game, and so it's a good finisher. And then it has another effect that when it stands, you may give it a crit, and if you do, it retires itself at end of turn. Oftentimes you don't want to actually give it the crit because it'll have all of your spare trick stars underneath it, and thus it can have potentially 30k extra shield underneath it, and you kind of want to keep it in play. But it is good if you're just trying to, like, if either your hand is really good and you think you'll survive, and or like you just need to go for that Hail Mary and you need to hit crit to make both your rear guards lethal, so you give this one crit and now you just need to hit one crit to punish the opponent for trying to no guard your post Vanguard swings or something when they're at 4. So it's a really strong effect. Overall, this is like one of the best cards in the deck, but you're almost never going to cross over just into this early. This is a late game card, but you do want to aggressively discard these for value as you're doing all of your various effects. Then we have one copy of Strava Arena. This is the most important crossover dress card to have. It overdresses over one Trick Star and one Prayer Dragon. And two or more Prayer Dragons with different card names is the correct way. And the Trick Star counts as 2 cards, so you need one Trick Star, one Prayer Dragon minimum. And then it gives your Vanguard 10k and Triple Drive, and it gives itself 10k. And then it has, when it's in the crossover state and you stand it by your Vanguard's ability, if your opponent's on grade 3 or greater, counterblast 1 and stand all of your Talisman or Prayer Dragon rear guards. If the unit has 5 or more original dress, remove all markers from your opponent's R and retire all your opponent's rear guards. You'll almost never use that effect, but if you ever play against Levy Dross, you might as well. I guess it'll also be good against the Astral Plane deck, from what I understand. That deck's getting markers too. Or maybe it's getting gauges. I don't exactly know how it's gonna work. But against any deck that puts markers on a circle, or which is when your opponent has a full board of important cards that they can't rebuild and you have a surplus of value generation, you can go into this. It's a really strong card. It's the most important search target. You're going to try to get this into circulation right away with your first search, just to be safe, because if this card gets damaged, your whole game plan is ruined. You're a 4-attack deck for the rest of the game if you don't get this card back into circulation. Every good board state is also just going to have one of these for the 10k to itself and Triple Drive and 10k to Van. Then we have one Bower Virena. This overdresses over one Trick Star, one Prayer Dragon. It has the effect that if it's in the crossover dress state, you can Soul Blast 2 to retire something, and it is not once per turn, so you can just spend all of your soul to retire everything if you can. And then when it attacks a Vanguard, it gets 2k for every open circle on the opponent's side. So if the board is empty, it gets plus 10. And then if your opponent has one or less rear guards, you can counterblast 1 and perform a drive check, and it gets drive -1. This is a really good card. If you have the damage to use all of your CB on Bower Virena, then it is the best thing you can do. In the best board state would be Straw plus Bower if you have 4 counterblasts to spend. Also, Mirrors plus Bower can be very good. Although you'd probably be fine with just using Mirrors and Straw Virena if you could. So you won't do that very often. But Bower is really, really solid in games where you went second. If you can build Soul by discarding Ars Virenas and using Cindy, you can often get Bower Virena to retire everything. And you only need to kill 4 things if they have a full board. And if they have 4 units, you only need to kill 3 things. So realistically, most decks have some units that retire themselves, or that go to Soul, or whatever. Like Saragons go away. The Fish deck retires 2 of its units, and then re-rides one of the units at the end of turn, so it often ends up with a board of 2 to 3 cards, so on and so forth. And that will mean you don't actually have to retire a full, complete board. But getting Bower active and having the CB to spend on it is very strong. It's more strong than going into Mirrors equivalently, unless you really needed the counter charge for whatever reason. So you want to kind of look to playing to Bower when you're going second because you're going to get pushed up damage more than you want, and you want a big comeback. And getting 5 drive checks and 5 attacks is a good way to get that comeback, especially if you hit a crit on the first Bower swing. That can really swing the pendulum back into your favor. But if you know you don't have, if you have a board where you don't have a lot of soul and you are trying, and you also have a very defensive hand, or just your opponent doesn't push you that hard, you can just pivot into playing into a different crossover discard and abandon this card for the whole game. You can generally only use one of these per game, anyways. So unless your opponent it completely empties their board every turn, like they're playing Kyrie or something. Then we have Mirror's Virena. This card crossover dresses 1 Trickstar and 1 Prayer Dragon. And then when it's placed in crossover dress state, you choose 2 Virena cards from your drop and put them into the original dress. And then when it attacks, it gets 10k and you discard one of those Virenas from the original dress, and you can either draw a card or countercharge one. Most of the time, you're going to be drawing a card. But sometimes you'll countercharge one to like offset having to take 2 damage on the next turn. And also, if you ever hit Overtrigger, you're going to start countercharging with this because then you can get more attacks with Jheva when it hits the Overtrigger if you have tons of CB. Great card. It represents a +5 in your battle phase overall, which is insane. That can really dig you deep into finding everything you need and finding all the shield value you need. If you put a Prayer Dragon behind this, it hits for 28, and then if you stand Strava Arena and use its effect for CB, you can hit for 28 again. So it's overall pretty good number. And we will go into this in the mid game, but we'll start looking at Ars Virena more as we get further in the game, as we get more power from our graveyard. And then we have 1 copy of Vil's Virena. This card, 1 Trickstar, 1 Prayer Dragon. And when it's placed in the cross overdress state, you pick up a cross overdress ability card other than this card and put it in hand from drop. Which is a really good effect. Oftentimes you'll find yourself unable to get 2 cross overdress cards, but if you can get this card, you can get a second one and then you're fine. And then when it's in the cross overdress state, it can't be chosen and it gets +5k power and +10k shield. And that means it's a 15k interceptor. Though worth noting, it needs to be in the cross overdress state to keep that shield. So if you use the Trickstar's effect to call it from original dress to get the 10k power, if you don't have a Prayer Dragon or something else underneath this as original dress, it will exit the crossover dress state and you'll lose the power, shield, and untargetability. So that means you really need to give this the full amount of fuel underneath it, and preferably you can get either something like a Prayer Dragon you'd want back in the drop, like the Countercharger or the Self Caller from drop. Buzzsaw, that's the name of it, and then Argnius is the Countercharger. If you can get those cards underneath it, you can fulfill the condition. And this card doesn't need an Operagia because it's already untargetable. And then you can put Operagia on your other rear guard. But you do need some kind of Prayer Dragon if you plan to use this for its maximum shield value, which you should be aiming for every game. Going into Vils is really good for early rush, especially if you went first. And then it ends up being a ton of shield value because of the additional power. So it ends up representing like having drawn a trigger, which means that oftentimes it's similar shield value as one of the other cards in the deck. It's not as much offensive power as Bower, obviously, and it's not as much resource generation as Mirrors, but it can often end up being, on average, a very similar amount of defense to those 2 cards. And then we have our last overdress card. This is Virena Arcs. This is actual overdress, not cross overdress. It overdresses over 1 Trickstar, and if it's placed on R in the overdress state, you counterblast 1 and draw 2, and then it gets 5k till end of turn. The reason we play this now is because we can hard search it with the Blaze Maiden, and we always search our Trickstar from our ride line. So anytime we have this on turn 2 or turn 1 going second, we can always search for the arcs, especially if we had a Virena Arcs or something to discard a Strava Arena from the deck to keep it in circulation. We go into this, we draw 2. We hope that the draw 2 gets us either an Operagia or some other kind of Prayer Dragon. And if we have a Vils or Mirrors Virena, we can then overdress or cross overdress into one of these, and we can have double overdressed units on turn 2. And it's pretty easy to get that. Really, if you ever get multiple Blaze Maidens and you went second, you're guaranteed that. If you get Um, if you get one of them in hand, you can search for the one you're missing off of your one Blaze Maiden you get to activate on turn 2. You can't really use Arspirina to set up this play because it will you won't be able to grab them back from drop until you're on turn 3, because the stuff that grabs from drop is all Nirvana gated, I believe. So that is the only problem with the strategy, but you essentially have 3 cards in your deck. If you draw any of these and you draw a Blaze Maiden Blessia, you can search the last one, and then you have the double overdress combo, which is really good, especially if it's Vills plus Arcs, because then you get high defense and card draw. And Mirrors will only draw you 1 card on grade 2, so it's not as good as getting Virina Arcs in general. Going into this plan does make it harder to go into Bower. Keep that in mind. You'll either have to countercharge or take more damage if you want to play Bower on the next turn. So there's that to consider. But usually I don't often go into Bower on the first grade 3 turn going first, so the Virina Arcs is fine. And going second, I often need the Pot of Greed effect just to fill my hand to survive my opponent's first grade 3 turn when I'm on grade 2. So this is a really solid card. The fact we can consistently get it on turn 2 now is really good. And then we just call the Trickstar from underneath it and intercept with it, and that's 15k shield. So he draws us 2 cards and is a 15k shield on board, and that means that it's a lot of defensive value. Jheva is now surprisingly tanky. Then we have, for the last of our normal units, 3 Blaze Maiden Cindy's. You're probably familiar with this card if you played Bavsagra at all or were playing when that was active. This card, if you have Nirvana or Bavs in its card name, you put this into Soul and you choose an Arms or a card with the Overdress or Crossover ability from drop and put it to hand. So this can buy back all of our important cards. And then in drop, when a unit with Trickstar or Trick Mood in its card name is placed on R by your Vanguard skill, you can call this card to R as well. And that's just really solid. It means that you're calling 3 cards off of Jheva activations if you have one of these in circulation. If you have one of these stuck in Soul, you can play an Operagia often to try to get it out of Soul. Or you can use this card to Soul Blast 2 and retire it to grab back a Prayer Dragon from drop. And that can get the Cindy back to set up the whole combo. Really important card. You want to see 1 of it per game, but after 1 copy, you kind of don't need any more. So we only play 3. And then we have 3 normal unit PGs, whichever your favorite art you have, and then 1 Elementaria Sanctitude. The Blitz Order PG is really important right now. It's very good against Ichikon because Ichikon has 0, which has a guard restrict if they Persona Road. It turns off auto abilities, and thus normal perfect guards can't guard 0 from Ichikon if they're on Persona Ride. So if they push you to 5, or if they hit crits and put it on 0, you are going to have to hard guard it with raw shield value, or you're going to have to play Elementaria Sanctitude. And oftentimes their numbers can get big enough that you really need the Elementaria. So you kind of have to play this. Don't play 4 normally into PGs. There's also just some other stuff in the format that Elementaria is good in. There's good against, like Liel Odium and stuff. And then we have 1 Twin Cast to round out our Blitz orders. You could play Bracing Angel Ladder as your Regalis piece in this deck. It's fine. Bracing Angel Ladder will both be a card draw and a power boost to your Vanguard, but it'll also importantly build Soul for Bower Virina. Aside from that, we don't actually really care about the resist effect anymore. Prison is not as big a player in the meta, and we can already make it so that our units cannot be chosen pretty easily. So the Bracing Angel Ladder would really only be good against untargeting removal, which there's not a lot of in the format. I think KaiCon, the Kai Icon Overlord deck has, I think Vortex Dragon might retire the front row and not choose units. So against that deck it might be good, and against like Bavsagra, against Prison, Bracing Angel Ladder is good, things like that. But we already can make an entirely untargetable board for the most part. So you don't need ladder anymore. I would definitely play a ladder if we were still in a Prison format, but Prison has not topped very much at all this entire season. I don't think it has It might have some tops somewhere, but in Japan, but I don't remember seeing it. So you don't really have to worry about control effects as much. And Aichi-Con, which does have retire, has targeted retire, which means that having resist is gonna get around it. So we don't really need ladder anymore. Twin Cast is just gonna be extra shield value and discard fodder, which is always good in a deck that discards so much. And that's a pretty strong argument for playing it. Aside from that, this slot can be basically whatever you want. I do think that Twin Cast is probably the best card in it right now. And then we get to our triggers. We have 4 heals, 2 regular heals, and 2 effect heals, and we have the anti-restand heals. This is Stealth Fiend Amaviera. It gets plus 15k shield if the attacking unit has attacked 2 or more times, and it's a base 10, so it's a 25k heal. There's an argument for playing 4 restand heals now, because there's a lot of top-tier decks that attack with restanders. I mean, aside from Fish, it's really common. The Overlord deck restands. All the Aichi-Con decks are going to restand. There's a few other decks that have a restand effect. It's really like Leal Odium, Leal Draconis, and Leal Odium I think does have a restand now. But Leal Draconis, Regiregnus, maybe Blangdemire are like decks that it's not going to be at its best against, but you should probably still be fine regardless. But I'm playing a 2-2 split just to be safe. And then we have 4 vanilla crits. Play vanilla crits because this deck does not need the soul, and the 5k matters because we can boost a 13k base with it to get magic number. And then we have 4 more vanilla crits. Then we have 3 fronts. You can play 1 or 2 draws instead of full fronts if you want. Draws will help you find some of the pieces, but this deck's really consistent now, so I don't think you need it. And fronts are just more power and more shield value when you're getting early rushed. And then 1 Dragaveda, still the best overtrigger in the game. And with Jheva is the deck that is the most likely to instantly kill you if you hit this and you have the CB. Because we go up to, I think, 8 attacks. It's 2 rear guards, Vanguard swing, hit OT, stand Vanguard, swing with 2 rear guards, swing with Vanguard, activate again, swing with 2 more rear guards. Because Jheva's skill is not once per turn to restand. So if you have Strava Arena and you have a ton of Counterblast, you can just go for 8 attacks, and you're going to get 200 million swings out of that, as well as 2 more triple drives, or 2 triple drives. So you're hitting a lot of triggers, you're drawing a ton of cards, and you're hitting the opponent with really big numbers. And then if you hit OT, you can put all the power for the other triggers you hit onto your other column and just make your rear guards impossibly large. If you ever hit that and you have the CB, or if you have Mirrors of Irina to countercharge, you will probably just win the game on the spot. Your opponent would have to hit their OT back, usually. So that's Jheva. I've shown the attack pattern for this deck on another video, I think. So I'm going to instead show you the Strength of the Grade 2 pattern, where now we can have something like... we can search for arcs after discarding Blaze Maiden Blessia. We can have used an Arts Arena on turn 1 and discarded out the Strava Arena. And then we can have naturally drawn Vils Virina, for instance. And then if we play an Operagia, we search out a Trickstar from the right line, and we play an Operagia, and we either search out Buzzsaw if we have another Trickstar, or if we don't have another Trickstar, we search out another Trickstar. And then you can have, with this board and like 1 CB, you can have this setup, add this back, draw 2 cards, and then you can hit a drive check for another card, and so you end up like 4 cards extra and or like recovered from discard and value. And then this is you get 2 15k columns So if you have any kind of boosters, like if you have another one of these, that's a 23 now. That's hitting for a very good number into a grade 1 if you're going first. If you have other trick stars, you can have the Vanguard be boosted or boost the rear guards as well to hit over defensives. And it's just very good early pressure. And then on top of that, you now have 15k shield you can throw away without carrying, and you have 20k shield here, or 25k shield here. And then that makes it very likely that you only took 1 or 2 damage. And then on your next turn, you know, you can go whole hog. You can, this can like find you another good thing, or this can just be discarded and you can get stuff back. But it helps you pivot very strongly into your grade 3 turn and stay super low. Or alternately, you can just draw as many cards as you wanted and then take everything and then go into Bower and have a ton of drive checks. But that's the deck. Yeah, check out elsewhere for the, I believe my last video on Jheva had the full attack pattern. So if you want to see the grade 3 turns, you can look at that. But the quick version is you're usually swinging a 28 or 23, and then another 23 or 33, and then the other column is 38 or 33 if you have Persona. And you're either doing 2 card draws off of Mirror's Arena, or you're getting double drive checks off of Bower. And then the Vanguard is 23 triple, and then you restand, and you swing 33 and 33 with drive again. And then when you're ready to kill your opponent, you go into Ars Arena for a giant unit that's like 50k power or more. So that's the deck. More stuff coming soon again. Trying to get back into the swing of things. Thanks for watching.